In this video, you are going to learn how to do this fantastic hover animation using pure HTML and CSS. This is going to be super quick and easy, but the result is powerful. Once you get the idea of how it works, then you can create anything with it. So let me show you this other variation I did with LeBron James. So that's the LeBron card. We hover over it. There's this beautiful highlighted image of a LeBron James dunk. So this is an amazing hover animation. Now let me show you the original project where this video is based on. So this is the original pen by Gayan Gasparian. All the credit to her. She is the hero developer that created this beautiful animation. So as you can see, we hover over it. There's that same effect. The first time I saw this pen, I became very impressed and I decided to explore the code a bit, and I saw it was very simple to replicate. That's why I decided to do this video. So the first thing we are going to do here is downloading these images so we can create a similar structure. So we can get these original images and then we are going to change them. So here we have this card element. I'm going to download the cover image first. So let's copy the URL and let's paste in a different tab. So this is the image for the card itself. We also have an image for the title. She probably made this decision because of the typography, but in our project, we can go ahead and create it with text. And we have this one, which is for the image that appears on hover. This is a PNG image with transparency as well as the title. So now you can create a new folder on your computer for this project, and let's download these images. So go to Save Image As. Now let's do the same thing with the title and the character images. So on Visual Studio Code, let's go to File, Open Folder, and you can open the folder you just created. So this is the project folder. Inside I have another one called IMG, which is where I place the images, and I'm going to open the projects folder. So let's open it. So for the HTML, let's go with the basic HTML5 structure. Let's make a link to the CSS file. And let's create the CSS file. Let's create a new element for the card. So this is all we need for now. Let's run this project using the live server extension. If you don't have this extension, just go here to the extensions panel and search for the live server. After installing the live server extension, you can just go to this Go Live button in the bottom right of the screen. Now let's go to the CSS file and let's add some global styles first. Now we have the color set. Now let's use Flexbox so we can see the card in the middle of the screen. Now for this to work, we need to set the height and width. And now we see the card in the middle of the page. So this is what we need to get started. Now let's go to the CSS file so we can start creating the structure for this card. In the original project, she used the first image inside the wrapper element. And this was for the cover image. Now outside the wrapper, let's add the image for the title. And let's not add the character just now. Let's first work on the visible part of the card. So the card is going to have a height of 400 pixels and width of 250 pixels. And every image inside will only take 100% of the width. Now this is getting closer to what we need, but if we look at the original project, we will see that the title is actually showing in front of the card. So let's do that now. Let's get the wrapper that we created for the background image of the card and make its position absolute so it can appear in the background. So for the wrapper, we are going to have the position of absolute, and let's set the z index to -1 so it's not in front of the title but the opposite. Now we need to make the card relative so that these coordinates are relative to the card element. And now we just need to push the title to the end of the element, and for that we can simply set a display of flex for the card, justify content center, and align items we can set to flex end. So this is going to push the title to the end of the card element. So now let's start playing a bit with the hover effects. So we can start a new selector for the hover state of the card. And let's add some transformations to the wrapper element. We add a translate Y so we can see it going up a bit. Now a rotate X of 25 degrees. So we have this tilt movement. And let's add a perspective of 900 pixels. So as you can see, this is the final effect. I'm just copying her code. There's nothing new here. This is all coming from the original CodePen project. So here we have the animation for the card, but now we need to make this smooth. And that's where the transition is going to make all the difference. So if we go to the wrapper element and set a transition all 0.5 seconds, we save this, and now this is already much different. Look how this appears very smoothly. So this is looking great. Now we can also add a box shadow. So for this, I'm just going to copy and paste the original code for the box shadow. And you can see that below the element, there's a little shadow. Maybe the background is a bit too dark for this to be noticeable, but if we change this to a lighter color, just to take a look, now we can see the shadow showing below the card. Now one thing I'm noticing here is that the image is not taking the whole card, so let's adjust that. So for that, the best thing is to work a bit differently with this image in particular. So this specific one is going to be .cover, which, let's remember, that is how we set these classes. So for this specific one, I'm going to set the height at 100% as well. And I'm going to use object fit cover. And now we have the image taking the whole card. So now we see that this is working fine. Now we can set the background color back to what we had before. And one thing you can do if you want, since we're using a dark background, is changing the color for the box shadow. Maybe let's try a purple one, for example. Let's see how it looks. And now we can see much clearer. So this is up to you. This is just a variation of the project. Let's probably make it a bit darker. And now this is looking great. Now let's do something similar for the title. So I'm going to open a selector for that title image, and the transformation we are going to do with it is going to be simpler. So let's not forget to copy the transition for the title. This is actually, let me just copy this selector. We need one without the hover first to make some adjustments, and then we have another one for the hover state, and here we're going to set the transformations. So for this one, we're going to add a translate 3D, and I'm going to get the values from the original project. And now we have the title moving up on hover. If you want to make it a bit smaller, you could maybe set a max width of 80%, and this is going to be a bit smaller. I think this fits better. So now we have the animation, at least for the card part, almost complete. Before we add that character in front, there's something we need to do here, because in the original project there is a beautiful gradient that makes the card darker. So we need to apply that. For this part, I'm just going to do it a bit different than what she did, because she had one element for the gradient at the top and one element for the gradient at the bottom. I'm just going to have one element for the gradient, and we can make it 100% opacity on top, 0% in the middle, and 100% at the bottom. So now let's just start a new pseudo element. We do this so we don't have to create an extra HTML element. In the end, the result is the same. But for the pseudo element to appear, we need to add a content for it. We can just add an empty string. And now we need to have an absolute position. Top and left will be 0, and width and height 100%. Now if we add a background color with an RGBA, let's try black color, then we can see that element showing. And if we make it transparent with 0.5, but now we need it to appear only on hover. So we are going to add an opacity of 0, and then when it's on hover, we can change the opacity to 1. Let's add the transition property so it happens smoothly like the other transitions. So now this is a bit better, but in the original project, this is not done with the background color. I just wanted to show you that if you want an easy way to make it darker, this is one way. If you want to make it even darker, you just change this number to 0.7. And now this looks darker. But if we get the original project, let's go to the CSS, you will see that this is actually based on a gradient. So let's copy this and let's make a small adjustment here, because in the original project, she uses one gradient for the top and one gradient for the bottom in two different elements. But we can actually do this with just one element to make this simpler. So let me copy this. And instead of setting the background color like we did, we are going to use that gradient. I'm just going to make it show for now, just so we can see it here all the time. So we have a gradient. Let's make it go to bottom. And here's what we are going to do. So on 0%, we are going to start at a dark color. So let's use this one that she used. This is the color that will start at the top at 0%. We can make it transparent from like 40% until 60%. and then we end with the dark color again. So we save this and we are making just the top and bottom dark. So now let's put the opacity back at 0. This is an adjustment to what she did. It's not exactly how she did it in the original project, but this is fine for now. We can see that the card is getting darker. If you want, you can maybe change this to 46 and 54, and you are going to have it even darker. So just in the middle, it's not going to get dark. In my opinion, this is good. Let me just change back the color of the box shadow. I think this is a bit too bright. All right, now this is more subtle. So now we've finished with the animation for the card. The only thing missing here is adding that image at the top, and this is going to be very simple to do. So going back to the HTML file, let's add another image. This is going to be the one for the character. So now we can see it showing. Now let's make the position absolute. Let's set the width at 100% and the Z index to -1. So this is going to be behind the title as well. This is more or less where it needs to be. We just need to adjust the hover state to make it elevate like the other elements. So let's do this now. Before I forget, let's copy the transition property. So adding the selector for the hover state, we are going to have the opacity set to 1 here and the opacity set to 0 in the original element. So now we can see that the element is showing only on hover. Now one last adjustment we are going to do is the animation to make it elevate. So for this, let's copy the one for the title, which is similar. But for this one, in the original project, she used 30 pixels. So let's make it the same. And now we have the final result, which is similar to the original project. We just changed a few things. So as you can see, very simple to do. 3 images stacked at the top of each other, one pseudo element for that gradient, and that's pretty much it. So now I'm going to show you how it's easy for you to apply this to other scenarios. So I'm going to do this. Let's go to the projects folder inside the images folder, and I'm going to open the character and the cover image in Photoshop. Let's not do the title because the title can be in text. So let's drop them inside Photoshop. You don't have to do this in Photoshop. You can do this in any other image editing software of your choice. So I'm just getting the original images so we can use the same sizes. So let's do the tennis shoes one. I'm just going to search on Google for Nike red shoes. Let's go to images. Now we can try to find one nice image for the background. This is good for the character, so let me get this one now. So this is going to be used for the character. Let me remove the original one. Let's use this. I'm gonna have to make it bigger. If it loses a bit of resolution, that's fine. This is just for this example. I think this is good enough. And now I'm going to use the background remover from Photoshop. So let's make it a bit bigger like this. Let's position this closer to the bottom, and I think this should be fine. So let me save this. export as. This has to be a PNG with transparent background. So let's save it with the same name, but instead of 1, let's make it 2. This is going to be for the character. And let's find an image for the card. Probably more similar to this one. Any image will do for this example. I'm just going to use this one. Let me add a layer of gradient so this is a bit darker. I'm gonna make this 50%. This one is going to be closer to a red color. And we have black in the middle. And I believe this is good. So let's export this one as well. I'm going to save it as 02 cover. This is going to be a PNG now, so we need to adjust that. So let's save this image as well. Now going back to the project, we can go ahead and replace the image. So for the cover, we have the 02 cover. This now is a PNG. And we can remove the title for now because we're going to replace this with text instead. But let's see how it looks without the title. We can see the animation showing. I think this is actually too far down, so let me do an adjustment. I'm going to position it at the top instead. And now this is looking better. So similar to what we had in the beginning of the video, now we just need to add the title. Now let's use a Google font to make this look nicer. I think this one is going to look good. So let's click Get Font. Let's get the embed code. We can link all this in the HTML file. And we can set the font family to Anta. And this is looking much better. Now let's just change the fonts a bit. So here we have the end result that we just created based on this amazing pen by Gayan Gasparian. So I'm not tired of giving her the credit because this is just amazing. So that was all. I hope you liked this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the web schools to see more videos like this, and I'll see you next time.